Anderson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Cass over the top. Big side, down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen, deep ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
What is good, Bruin Bible listeners? It is your host, Will Decker. We got to get a sponsor in before we start this episode. It's BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA playoffs. BetOnline is your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered for your insider sports wagering needs. From basketball, Major League Baseball, NHL, hockey, golf, to UFC and boxing, the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your home. Make sure you check out BetOnline. Get into the action today. So head to the website or use your mobile device to join, and be sure to use your promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now to the Bruin Bible. What is up, Bruin Bible listeners? Will Decker, your host. We got a special guest in the house joining us, as he has often done throughout the offseason. Our friend and your favorite, Mr. Wayne Cook, in the house. Always a blast to have the Bruins' former quarterback and just a diehard Bruin in all facets of life. Wayne, how is this Monday treating you after the big Pac-12 Media Day weekend?
Well, I don't even know if I can look at you. You are like a star. I mean, I didn't make the trip to Vegas. I'm going to go ahead and disclose a couple of truths here real quick before we get going. I don't think I heard anything that was shocking to me because it's Media Day. But what I love is a couple of things I love, and I'm going to compliment you real quick. I did send you a text when you were doing your thing, and I thought you asked a ton of great questions. But you have a knack that I appreciate. And I've been covering UCLA football for over 20 years. I've been a player. I know that, like, it's really hard to be positive and not sound fake. We live in a world where, and I know you know this already, where people think that if you're not asking, kind of jerk questions all the time, that you're somehow not doing your job. And I've always believed in the opposite, that if you actually ask real football questions, that you'll get more out of coaches. And you'll get more real answers than you will if you make them defensive and you just ask stupid questions. And you ask good questions. You can tell you know what you're talking about, and that's why I love coming on this show. And you also have a way of being positive without being fake. Because you can be positive about an 8 or a 9-win team when we know that at least half of our fan base is like, if we're not Alabama, we suck. I mean, that's kind of like,
yeah,
maybe I should say Georgia nowadays, since they may have surpassed. But like the idea that it's like never good enough is fine with me. I've never had a problem with that. But you can still have amazing athletes doing amazing things. You can still have amazing coaches at every position and still only win 8 or 9 games. And I know some people have a hard time wrapping their brain around that, but sometimes the ball just doesn't quite bounce your way. And let's be honest, if you're competing against teams that have nothing but 5- and 4-star guys, especially now in the world where money can buy even more than it used to, even though we all know that people were paying players in the past too, it's to me is amazing that UCLA has climbed this mountain. And I think you appreciate that too. And got to a point to where I totally believe this with all of my heart. We are competitive with integrity. So when you have reporters, and I'm not going to lie, not all of them are like you, Will. We have some reporters that are always looking for the edgy, always looking for the, like, how can I knock this down? And trust me, sometimes it's deserved. There have been some locker rooms I've been in after games, and I've just been scratching my head going, what are we doing? I've gone to practices in over 20 years where I've gone, what are we doing? But now I feel like I have to talk people to sometimes to let them know that, like, no, you guys, what we have right now is something that should be admired. And if we get people covering the team that appreciate that, I think it's fantastic. So I know that was a lot right there, but I'm complimenting you, Will. I thought you looked good too, by the way. Hair was perfect. You were groomed up. I thought, and you stole the show, did you? You did a great job.
Dude, can't say how much I appreciate that coming from you, big dog. Love having Wayne on. He's part of the LAFB family when it comes to the podcast. And I think let's keep it on a positive note.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly was the most positive I think we've ever seen him as a fan base and somebody that covers the team. He met with the media, Wayne, for about 25 to 30 minutes of just time of just answering questions with the scrum before going on stage. And these weren't one-answer questions. You know, we saw the charisma of Chip. He was throwing jokes left and right. You know, the famous one he mentioned was when my buddy Mike Regalado asked, you know, you got a new quarterback coming in, you got a new running back coming in. How's that going to be different? He goes, we're going to have our first new quarterback playing for us since George Bush. And I'm not talking about W. I'm talking about Herbert H. Walker Bush. That's 48 games into the year. You know, he was joking. He was getting emotional talking about Bill McGovern, which is totally understandable. It was, you know, just really interesting hearing those stories that him and Bill shared together. We got a full spectrum of emotions from Chip, and it's something we didn't really see in the past. Is this the most, you know, animated and charismatic you've seen Chip since he's been at UCLA, Wayne?
No, well, okay, hold on. I got to answer that question the right way. It's not because I've seen Chip a lot in different settings. I've seen him as a coach in the locker room. I've seen him before games. I've seen him after games. I've seen him interact with other coaches. I've seen him interact with, you know, NFL players that work out on our campus. I've seen him interact with players and coaches. And that kind of goes back to what I was trying to talk about a little bit at the beginning. Chip's, first of all, he's brilliant. Okay. Yeah. And I think he's also humble. He's always deflecting. I hope you watched the Joel Klatt interview that he was a part of.
Crying on the yacht. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. What a great quote, right? Like, stop your crying. Look at where we're at. Like, I mean, trust me, life is hard. Even if you're on a yacht, life can be hard. I mean, but if you don't read into that, what he's saying too much, one of the things that we learn as athletes from coaches like Chip Kelly is how to, and again, I'm going to say men right now because it's a man's sport as far as the players on the team, but we want to, every great coach from Terry Donahue to Homer Smith to Rick Neuheisel to Jim Mora to whoever, Bob Toledo, to all these great coaches, you know, Dick Vermeil, you want to raise, I shouldn't say that. I know we're treating young athletes like men, but remember, 18 to 20 something year old people, like, trust me, we need guidance. And I know I did when I was that age. I know, and I would argue that we need great coaches with character, probably more in the environment that we're living in, Will, than we ever have before. Because we're starting to throw money at players. Players are being introduced to stuff that is a lot. And if you pay attention to life and history, whether it's child actors, sons and daughters of celebrities, people that have everything, it takes a lot to raise kids like that in that environment because all of that excess is really hard to deal with. And now you have kids that are going to school. Anyway, I want to answer your question, and then I'm going to tie this into what I'm saying. I feel like Chip Kelly's comfortable at UCLA right now, but not in a bad way. We all know that being too comfortable sometimes makes us lazy. He's answering questions. People get mad and say things like, well, why aren't you recruiting high school kids? I just heard him in an interview, one of the side interviews. He talked about it. He goes, we know what we're doing. We might only take 15 kids when Arizona, Jed Fish talked about taking 28 every year. His philosophy is we're going to get high school kids. Chip Kelly's philosophy is not that. Chip Kelly's philosophy is that we're going to get the best high school kids we can get. We're also going to leave some space open for Carson Steele and Ali Cajo and all these great Noah Wiley and all these great players that are coming in that are transfers from other schools, Britton Brown, Zach Charbonnet. We're going to leave some space open for these proven players that UCLA has proven that they can get. So to act like he's just lazy, which some people have said, is just like, it hurts my head.
Oh.
Like, you're not trying hard enough to figure this thing out. He's really had a plan from day one. He's more comfortable than I think I've ever seen him. He's a great guy who has hired great coaches around him. Yeah, it always hasn't worked out on the field. We all know that. We all like to see a better defense, and I think we will, and we'll talk about that later. But he seems so comfortable. He's witty. He's smart. And when he gets good people like you and some of the other Bruin, like Mike and some of the other guys that do ask questions, you guys are good guys and you're asking real questions. He will answer them wholeheartedly if they're good questions.
I agree. And I think it's a culmination of two things. I think Chip is more relaxed than he's ever been at UCLA because he knows what horsepower he has in the locker room right now.
Yeah.
I think this is the most complete UCLA team he's ever had there. And he just knows how good they're going to be. He loves even being, I think what did we finish? 5th in the preseason poll, 6th, something like that. He loves being the underdog too. He is reveling in the fact that he's about to prove the entire Pac-12 wrong this year, going into this year. And he is excited about it. I think this is the most excited I've seen him before a season since I've been covering UCLA. So it's been really fun to watch that. And number two, I just think, he's kind of embraced, just life a little bit more, it seemed like. McGovern had such an impact on him, and you saw the effects that rubbed him, the way it did and how it projected to the media. I asked him a question about Ken Niamata-Lalolo, and he was bouncing. Yeah. He's like, you guys have no idea what this guy brings to our program. He was so thrilled about the addition of that, talking about his guys. And, if you're going to ask him a dumb, direct question like who's going to be the starting quarterback, he's not going to answer that. That's classic coach talk. When you got to play a poker face, when you're doing stuff like that as a coach. But, if you ask him, like you said, football questions in the right way, and the one question that I got into him was, how has Ken Norton Jr. impacted your linebacking room? He said, great question on the mic to me. And that was like one of the best feelings in the world coming from a guy like Chip Kelly, because he is very Belichickian in a lot of ways, where if you get him talking about the football topics, he can open up like a book. But if you're doing anything kind of outside or anything he perceives as kind of, shady or can help out the other side, he's not going to give you the best answer. That's just how he's been. Do you agree with that assessment of Chip?
So first off, yes, I do. And I interviewed Chip Kelly at halftime of every game and at the end of every game. I don't think he's given me a great question yet. So I do. I will say this. I host the team banquet every year. And, one of the things that I respect about Chip Kelly and what he's done, and I agree with you, he wants to talk about football. Like, there was a question about, you asked him about Garbers, and he gave a really good answer about what type of player he was. He also talked about Dante Moore. And I guarantee you, if you'd asked him about Justin Martin or Colin Schlee, he would have gone into what makes them because he talked about having one of the deepest quarterback rooms, and I think it's in I'm not going to say in UCLA history, because we have had some good ones, but for the 20 years I've been there, you'd probably have to go back to the 80s to find a quarterback room that had 4 quarterbacks that kind of ended up being Rose Bowl type quarterbacks and really, really good. So I think you're right. I think a lot of broadcasters want to ask the edgy questions, and they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know if they're trying to be tough or what, but if you ask a real football question, or if you get him to talk about his players or some of his coaches, he's going to give you a great answer. And you saw that at Pac-12 Media Day. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I met Bill McGovern for the first time at a practice, and I didn't see him at a spring practice until fall. And he said, "Wayne, how you doing?" He acted like we'd been friends forever. And it's terrible. I saw Coach McGovern pretty close to the end, like when he was out at one of the practices before he passed. And he kind of – and I didn't really get it because I didn't know how sick he was. I knew he was sick, but he made a comment that he wasn't going to be around much longer. And it kind of – we just kept talking, but God, what a great human. Yeah. And what a nice man. So I love what Chip Kelly said, and I love that he wasn't afraid to show emotion. But here's the deal, Will. We're going to go back to this character thing, and this is what I always try to tell UCLA fans right now. of all the years I've covered UCLA football, I really believe what he's saying about this team is filled with kids that are getting their education. They're quality human beings. I don't ever watch a practice where I see a player kind of acting stupid to the point to where I'm like, dude, that's like, you're an idiot. Like, why are you doing that? Like, as a former player, I feel like I have the right as an alum, guy that played for the school, to look at players and be like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, you need to act like more like you should on this campus and at this school. I used to see it in games too, where I'd look at a guy that had a 12-yard catch and he's trying to find a camera. And I'm like, dude, we're losing by 30.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And then he'd post that same thing on social media and act like he's the greatest player in the history of mankind. I'm like, I don't see any of that stuff now. It's almost like Coach Kelly and his staff have combined old school and new school in a way where he's okay with kids getting NIL money and doing these things. And like, he's okay with that. As a matter of fact, he seems like, listen, this is fine. But he also is still teaching kids about character and hard work and perseverance and all these things. And I swear to you, I know this because I see it. So when I'm at games and at practices, I don't see a lot of that nonsense. And when I do, we saw a little bit of it in our bowl game. I won't get into that too much, but guys got carried away with talking too much. And I've heard Coach Kelly in the practice field talk to players. He's talked. Listen, we all love the Murphys, right? I'll give you a great example. We all love the Murphys.
Oh, yeah.
They love to talk, though, right? They're not afraid to. I remember watching them both. If one of them's complaining to the ref, you sure as heck find the other one standing right next to him. And I've heard Coach Kelly tell me, like, man, I love you guys, but you need to stop. Like, that's not going to do us any good. And I love that. I think we live in an era where coaches cater to kids like, well, what if they transfer? Well, what if, I have to promise them this, promise them that? Screw that. We need players. We need coaches all over America and high school too, that if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and the coach benches you and you lose a game because the superstar got benched, good. We need coaches that do that because it's going to go south down the road if you don't teach these kids character and all the, we can talk about the pyramid of success, all that stuff. So anyway, as you can tell, this isn't water, by the way, this is coffee in the afternoon. So I'm hyper, Will, but I love it. I love what he said about Coach McGovern. I love what he said about the new coaches. And I just believe this program is in a really, really good place right now.
I couldn't agree more. And I want to kind of piggyback on your character comment because Chip Kelly brought two guys to Las Vegas, one being Duke Clemens, the center. What a phenomenal player he was. I got a great question with him talking about the differences between Justin Fry and Tim Drevno in the offensive line room. But the headliner of the group, Mr. Double-digit sack from a year ago, Mr. Liatu Latu. And I think the world is starting to figure out that this guy's story is incredible. And I don't think it was talked about enough last year, how impressive this was. This guy's a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, goes to University of Washington, has a promising freshman campaign. Something happens. He has to go to the doctor, forced to medically retire for 2 years. I think about 95% of your average humans would throw in the towel and be like, hey, multiple doctors have told me I can never play football again. I'm just going to call it a wrap after this. Liatu Latu is not your average human being. He puts the work in on the sideline. Chip Kelly said they cleared him. They didn't even know if he was going to play again. And he's just doing his individual workouts on the side, finally gets the clearance, has a breakout year this year, and is now a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year within the Pac-12 coming into 2023. And a huge reason why I believe UCLA has a real shot at the Pac-12 championship. Talk to me about this guy because this guy is different in a variety of different ways. I got to speak to him for the first time this week, Wayne, and I could not be more impressed with the Bruins' finest in Liatu Latu.
So let's start at the beginning because I want to apologize to the whole world that we got so obsessed with UCLA's guards last year and their stories and and again, it's tough to replace, but Duke Clemens has been there, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, as a guy that played with Mike Flanagan, who snapped to Brett Favre for quite a few years and was a great center. Those guys are so important. And I think having Duke and I know we got DeGiorgio and we've got a couple guys back, and then we've got 3 transfers, right?
Jake Wiley.
By the way, I'm real excited about those guys, by the way. I think this starting unit is going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But man, Duke Clemens matters because your center, and I don't really pay attention as much as I should about who's making the blocking calls and stuff like that. Like in my day, it was always quarterback, but I'm sure it's a little bit of both. But the center is very involved in getting everybody going the right direction. And I think he matters a ton. So I was extremely happy that he was one of the people chosen. I know people lose their minds. By the way, Will, isn't it funny how people lose their minds over, oh my gosh, like, why did he pick these players? It's like, you guys aren't practicing every day. Sometimes, like, you can pick a kid that is third string, but is the heart and soul of every freaking practice. And coaches have their reasons. But Duke's is a great player. And then Latu is, and I'm telling you, I saw something different in spring practice. I watched a guy that has, like, he just doesn't look like a defensive end. He doesn't look like a guy coming. He just looks like a freakishly athletic. I still think this is going to sound crazy, but, like, I still think he's got size in him, meaning that, like, he probably's not going to get much bigger before this year, but I think you watch when he goes to the NFL, he's going to be even bigger. It's always fun to watch how big the guys get when they actually don't go to school anymore and they just start working out like all day. But he's so athletic. He's so fast. He's got great instincts. And here's going to be the key. Whether it's Gabriel or Carl or any of we've got other dudes.
Yeah.
Or we're blitzing Oladejo or Muasau or Kay Madrano or John Vaughns. You're not going to just be able to worry about, and Gary Smith and Jay in the middle, you're not just going to be able to be like, we have to worry about Latu, which you will, right? You trust me. After the first couple games, I have a feeling he's going to be like that 15 number where he said he wants to get 15 sacks.
Yeah.
He's going to get a few of them early in the season, and that's going to be awesome because you're going to have to start game planning for that guy. And when you do that, you have to worry about all the other guys. I mean, even Chip Kelly seemed like he got kind of excited about the front seven and how deep they are.
Oh, yeah.
It's stupid how deep they are. And it hasn't been like that in a while. So Latu, to me, he very easily could lead the conference in sacks, and I wouldn't put it past him to be near the nation leaders. But everybody else is going to have to do their job. If everybody else shows up and plays when you've got an athlete like that, and I'm not saying other guys aren't going to surprise this year, but he's got a chance to be special. And if everybody does their part, like we used to say this all the time, Matt Stevens and I, when Kenny Clark played at UCLA, you had to deal with Kenny Clark.
Yeah.
And when you had to deal with Kenny Clark, the linebackers that were behind Kenny Clark were making plays all over the field. So everybody in that front seven, if they're doing their part and they're as good as we think they are, you can't just worry about Latu, which helps him a lot.
Yeah. And, I mean, we alluded to it, man. You know, the Murphy twins are back. You have Keanu Williams, the transfer in from Oregon, now at defensive tackle. The best linebacking room, bar none, at UCLA, arguably the Pac-12 coming back next year. So just a lot of great things. And Latu's just wired differently because Ashley Adamson, the Pac-12 host, asked him on stage, what's the weirdest question you were asked today? And he went, what animal would I choose to fight? That was the question he got. And they go, what'd you end up choosing? That's a really weird question. He said, I would fight a bear. So, like, the old saying, like, if I fight a bear, pray for the bear. I feel like that's Latu going into battle for next year. So, it was just such a cool moment to kind of get to talk to Latu, get to talk to Chip Kelly, really be integrated within that, UCLA program and be a part of something. It was really cool just to be front and center with the people that matter most for UCLA. Yeah. A lot of other teams out there, Wayne, and I want to get your opinions on these. We had the who's who of the Pac-12 in the house. I got to start with these guys because it's the only right way to do it. Until they're knocked off the top, I think they have to be favored again. Utah in the house. Cam Rising, injury is progressing faster than expected in terms of him coming back out to the field. Kyle Whittingham, one of the most underrated coaches in the entire country out there. What are we thinking about Utah? Because for me, until they are defeated and dethroned from that Pac-12 championship, they're my favorites until proven otherwise.
That's why I love you, buddy. You're right, and that's the way it should be. And it's kind of silly to me that I mean, again, listen, SC had a good year last year. They really did. The Heisman Trophy winner. Well, last I checked, two-time defending champions are Utah. They got a lot of dudes coming back, and I know that people are a little skeptical about Cam Rising staying healthy, but Cam Rising is like that. I don't know if you. I mean, obviously you were there. Dude, he looks huge.
Yeah, he's
like sitting there. I mean, and maybe it's the hair. I don't know, but man, he is like built. I know he's been getting hurt, but they're not afraid to run him. It feels like he is like the perfect Kyle Whittingham player. Like it feels like, he's fine. He's got a guy that I could put at middle linebacker and he'd probably be really good. And he's my quarterback.
Yeah.
Now I will say this, and I've told you this before. He's a Newbury Park kid, which is like, that's my school. And so I love me some, I really like rooting for Cam. I was very happy when they lost to UCLA last year, but every other game I'm fine with them winning. He's a different kind of quarterback. I wouldn't put him in this, and I'm sorry, Cam. I probably wouldn't put him as high as some of the other elite college quarterbacks. And I did put him in that category, though. Two Rose Bowls in a row makes you a really friggin' good player. But we saw what happened to him in the Rose Bowl when he lost his tight end. And Kincaid. It really took him out of his game. And I said it in the pregame show. I said this is going to be a problem because they rely on that so much. He's great with his legs. It's that offense isn't as dynamic to its receivers. It is maybe, and it's a little bit more old fashioned, I guess, in the way they play football. But I think that he's going to, once he learns to spread the ball around the field a little bit more and be a little bit more efficient at getting through his reads and getting the ball out on time, being a little bit more like a Joe Burrow. And I know he's not that type of player, but I always use him as an example of just getting that ball out quick. And then when you tie that into the way he runs and moves the ball, I still think there's another level for Cam. I don't know if he's an elite passer or not. I know he's thrown for a lot of yards, but we'll see. But he does have a pretty good quarterback, tight end coming back. So Keith's coming back, and he was considered better than Kincaid before he got hurt. So he'll have that. But I hope that for Utah's sake, I hope that Cam really kind of takes that next step because I'm rooting for him. I root for all these players. I really do. I just want him to lose to UCLA. But I think Cam has more growth when it comes to using the whole field.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Whittingham, he's actually said this in back-to-back Pac-12 media days. He believes Cam Rising is the best leader he's ever coached.
Yep.
When you hear those terms, maybe he's not the best thrower, maybe he's not the best runner. I don't care about that. I want a guy that comes out in the huddle, and you can even hear it in this guy's answers. Yep. Calm, cool, and collected, leader. You know it when you see it type of thing. It's that old Tom Landry quote where it's class. You don't know it until you see it type of thing. Tom Landry was class. I think Mike Ditka said that about Tom Landry. This is the same thing when you see Cam Rising. You go, oh, that's a leader right there. And, I mean, it was exemplified the second he got in there when they were, on the verge of losing to San Diego State. They ended up losing, but he took it into overtime, scoring 3 or 4 touchdowns. May not be the best, but he's got weapons. I mean, Micah Pittman transferring in there, the brother of Michael. Keithy coming back. Devon Velley coming back. Just knowing what Whittingham brings and knowing they have the biggest puzzle piece back, which is Cam Rising, I can't bet against them. So I love it.
So real quick, it's funny because if Cam, and I'm sure he listens to this podcast because I think everybody does, I hope he's saying, hey, screw you, Cook. You're an old man. What do you think? What did you do? I swear to you, I agree 100. That was perfect. He's got that. Well, we saw it with TCU last year. Like, I don't think he's going to be an amazing NFL quarterback. I think he's an unbelievably good what's his name again? I'm forgetting it right now. The TCU quarterback.
Max Duggan.
The same type of, like, so much heart, right? Wills his team to victory. I actually think that Cam's more talented than that. I do. I think he's got more. But he's in that mold, right? You always think of like the Tim Tebows of the world, but I'll even throw in an NFL quarterback, a Jalen Hurts. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the greatest passer that's ever lived. I can name a lot of NFL guys that probably throw better balls than him. But man, that guy's got heart. He runs like a running back, and he's a better thrower than a lot of people give him credit for, right? So, like, you take all those things, and I take him over a guy with a great arm that's an idiot and doesn't work hard and doesn't study. And so yeah, I love the mold of Cam. And believe it or not, if we went back to talking about UCLA, I kind of think that's what whoever our next quarterback – I want that guy. I want the guy that has all kinds of talent, but I also want the guy that's going to scratch and claw to win those couple of games that you have to win every year to win a championship. Like, I don't know who it is. I really don't. But I hope one of those guys is on this staff right now, because that's what it takes. It's really hard to win championships without a quarterback that has that something special like Cam does.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for those listening, Wayne, you'll probably agree with this sentiment. I would say it's about 20% talent on the field, but it's 80% within the ears, man. How you're processing the game plans, your leadership, how you inspire the other guys to give their best. That's what Cam Rising does. So I love the
game. People can't grasp who just won the British Open.
Oh, my God.
He's too small. He doesn't hit, or he kicked everybody's butt.
I mean, that was a Tiger-like performance too.
It was kind of boring. He just said, "You're not going to catch me."
It was one of the more impressive British Open performances in recent years. But let's pivot to the University of Washington Huskies. This actually might be my favorite outside of Utah, given the likes that they may have 4 of the best 8 players within the conference, if you really break it down. Michael Penix not being a Heisman candidate last year was an abomination after leading the nation in passing, while also leading the UW Huskies to the best finish of any team within the Pac-12. They actually ranked the highest of any team when season's end came around. 2 best receivers in the conference are Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan coming back. And then you got Braylon Trice, the edge rusher, who is probably the biggest threat to Liatu Latu in winning the Defensive Player of the Year within the Pac-12. Talk to me about what Kalen DeBoer's done, because we talked about Whittingham being underrated. I saw a stat that Kalen DeBoer, at his time from Fresno State now to Washington, is 90-12 as a head football coach and got to double-digit wins in his first year of Power 5 competition. He's unbelievable.
So I agree with everything you said there. And I should start this by saying, and UCLA beat Utah and Washington last year.
Yes.
Like back to back, right? Like that's why, like, people don't get, when you go to Pac-12 Media Day and you're sitting there talking about conferences, like, I'm struggling not to put the Pac-12 at 2. I really am. I'm like, this is such a strong, and everybody just wants to talk about quarterbacks, but it's not just quarterbacks. People forget that the coaching and DeBoer's right up near the top. That's why I love how you started this. Like, to me, it starts there. Remember, Sark struggled at, now granted, DeBoer came in at a better time. It was kind of after the Chris Peterson years, so Washington kind of reestablished itself. But man, he's a really good coach. We saw him firsthand at Fresno State. The offense is electric. It's just this conference is loaded, and we're not even talking about some of the newcomers and even the Arizona schools and Washington State and what they might do. It's like there's just not in Colorado. I don't even know. I can't wait to see that TCU game. Because I don't know. I really don't know. So it's just that the conference is going to be, it's going to cannibalize itself, but it's so freaking good. And Washington, I agree. I looked at the top 6 because I agree with the top 6. Okay. And including Oregon State, which is good. This is going to be interesting because Oregon State this year is playing with expectations.
Yeah.
Which is going to be interesting. I was blown away and impressed with the players that they brought.
Oh yeah.
I thought they were as classy and as well spoken and as and I by the way, I say that with I love these athletes. I love listening to them talk. It's like It's like, to me, it's like watching Hall of Fame speeches where I'm just kind of blown away with, like, these guys are world-class athletes, but they're world-class people too.
Yeah.
And so I thought the Oregon State players, and by the way, I'm not surprised because I ran into Jonathan Smith a couple of years ago and introduced myself at one of the media days when it was still in LA, and we had a 20-minute conversation. I'm like, dude, you got better things to do than to talk to me, and he didn't seem like he did. So I'm not surprised with what he's doing at that school. But I'm not surprised with Washington either. I used to say this all the time. When I came to UCLA in the early 90s, Washington was Washington. They were like as good as it's ever been.
Champions back in the
they were conference champions. They were national champions. I've Brunel and Billy Joe Hobart, who I've played golf with a couple times out here in Southern California. They were awesome. And so and that stadium was incredible. So I've always said they're a sleeping giant. And young people have looked at me like, what are you talking about? Weren't they like 111 at one point? I'm like, just trust me. When that place starts winning, the fans are insane. And they can, and Chris Peterson did a great job. But I think DeBoer is going to keep it up. I thought that was a home run hire. They're really, really good. And like I said, if they can bring the defense, because remember, under Peterson, those defenses were legit.
Same with Jimmy Lake, man.
Dude, those secondaries were like really, really, really good. Linebackers were really good. So, and they had a couple of defensive linemen that were just absolute beasts. So, yeah, I think they can do a lot of good there in Washington this year.
I think they are a team that has to be taken incredibly serious when suggesting that they could win the entire Pac-12.
We don't have to play them this year.
We don't have to play them. We don't have to play the next team I'm going to talk about too, the Oregon Ducks. I mean, we got to, so I get to sit with lunch with these people. You mentioned you got to sit with Jonathan Smith for 20 minutes. The guy who happened to be at my table was Dan Lanning, and it was great to chop it up with him, kind of hear about the new offensive coordinator coming in, how, Bo Nix has progressed from his first year on campus to year 2. A lot of good going on there. And they've got a fearsome trio in their own right. If we're going straight quarterback, running back, wide receiver combination, I think quarterback, wide receivers alone, it's got to be Washington with what we just listed out. But you got Bo Nix at QB. You got Bucky Irving, a running back that averaged over 7 yards a carry last year, 6.8, coming back 1,000-yard rusher. And you got Troy Franklin, who a lot of people are calling the biggest sleeper of all the wide receivers within the Pac-12. Great offense. And then you know what Dan Lanning did on defense when he was at Georgia. I mean, this is a defensive guy. We're not even talking about what his defenses are going to look like in year 2 under his scheme. Oregon's got to be up there. Wayne, talk to me about the Ducks and what they could bring.
Well, and it's interesting. And I'm gonna get to Oregon, but this is kind of coming up because I want to talk about money right now.
Yeah.
It's probably not a surprise that Oregon's pulling in nothing but 4- and 5-star guys.
Yeah.
It's pretty insane when you look at it. SC is doing a little bit of the same thing. When, people have to be really careful with what they say about NIL and the transfer portal and all that stuff because, if you're not Lane Kiffin, who's not afraid to say anything, you can, which by the way is kind of fun, to be honest with you.
I love it as a media member.
If you really pay attention to a lot of these coaches, including the Pac-12 coaches, it's not about NIL being a bad thing. All of them across the board are pretty much saying, yeah, players deserve some of this. It's the way it's been rolled out, and it's pay for play. And I crack up about this because like people act like people are sitting out there going, oh, there's no way you can put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's over. It's done. I'm like, every freaking league I've ever been a part of has had rules, from little kids all the way up to the pros. They all have rules. The college football right now has no rules. It's like they say they do. It's like, oh, Tennessee, all that stuff you did, we're just going to fine you a certain amount of money. And, oh, yeah, that player that you had that you gave a bunch of money to that transferred to Georgia, you don't think he got money from Georgia. Did you hear that story, by the way? This guy got paid supposedly from Tennessee when he was being recruited. Then he doesn't go there. So he takes the money, doesn't go there, goes to Georgia. I'm like, so are you going to look there? Are you going to go? Because, to me, so anyway, there's no rules. Now today it wouldn't even matter. You can give anybody you want money. And as I always compare, it would be like the Lakers wanting to sign Dame Lillard. But obviously it doesn't fit into their cap, right? It doesn't work. So they go, hey, dude, we've got the vet minimum. But all the celebrities that are in our freaking stadium, we're going to get Flea, we're going to get Jack, we're going to get all the celebrities they're going to pay you the other $200 million. Well, you can't do that in the NBA because it's not fair. There's a cap. So in college sports right now, you have Oregon, and we all know there's some money there, right? We all saw the movie Air, whatever. There's a little bit of money there. And do you not think that money is being utilized? And again, I love Chip Kelly. I'm going to go back to character. He wants to talk about how many players are graduating, how many players are, getting their masters, how many players. And he talks about this because, to be honest with you, UCLA is probably going to need to recruit players that aren't necessarily. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not money there, because there is. This isn't a knock on UCLA, but you're crazy if you don't think that if you go across the United States, that this is even close to fair when it comes to who has money and who doesn't. There's just it's so anyway. That being said, you still have to have a team. We saw what happened with Texas A&M.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
There's a lot of money right there, but there was almost an implosion. And I got to be honest with you, Jimbo Fisher's his seat's probably pretty warm at this time.
It's got to be.
Just paying a bunch of players doesn't necessarily build character. And Utah, look at their recruiting. They get nothing but 2- and 3-star guys, and they're winning the conference 2 years in a row. So I'm not saying they don't get some 4 and 5, but they do it a different way. So I'm going to go all the way back to Oregon now. They're bringing in a lot of great players. I think Lanning's going to be a very good coach, but they still have to find a way. I think UCLA's last few years we've played them have been right there. I don't think they're that far ahead. So I like Bo Nix. I kind of put him in a category of even though some of these guys complete like 70% of their passes, still don't view him as an elite, pure passer.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's weird, right? It's like people are like, Cook, you only completed 58%. I'm like, I'm not talking about me. I'm just saying, for whatever reason, I study quarterbacks. I love quarterbacks. I watch Aaron Rodgers in practice and I start drooling because I just love the way the guy throws. And it's like, he's incredible. Bo Nix is an awesome athlete. He's going to have talent all around him. But we're going to see if there's a championship in that team or not. They're one of the teams that's in the hunt. They've got a lot of good players. And again, are we sure about Lanning yet? Coordinators sometimes don't make the coaches that make the right calls at the right time. We don't know. So we'll see. So that'll be interesting. I like Oregon. They're in my top 6, but I don't know where.
Yeah, that's fair. And we're talking about the Ducks a lot differently. If they don't get that last-second touchdown win in the Holiday Bowl, that Bo Nix kind of orchestrated the drive, because that's back-to-back losses, and they lost to Oregon State for the first time in a while. Jonathan Smith coming in there and beating the Ducks. That's not a great feeling for Oregon fans, man.
And they really struggled. Oregon State really struggled at the quarterback position, so it's an interesting – Oregon State's going to be real. They that stadium – again, I don't know if you've ever been there, Will. It's interesting. Corvallis is fun, but it's loud, and they get into it, and it's a pretty if they can figure out a way to get the right players in there, and I think Jonathan Smith's doing that. It's like, think about this. Over the years, how has Oregon State had some of those 10-win teams that they've had? Because they've kind of been like Washington State that way. Every so often, they have a run where they're really good.
And that's why, to me, Jonathan Smith is, if he can get back-to-back 10-win seasons at Oregon State, given what we've known about the program and how hard it is to be consistently competitive there, he is going to the Big Ten or the SEC. And I hate to say that for a program like Oregon State, because I love what he's doing. I wish he could stay there forever and build. But if he's your Kirk Ferentz, your Kyle Whittinghams, and, rest in peace as a coach right now, Pat Fitzgerald, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? He's going to leave. That's the trajectory of these coaches. So we'll see what happens with our guy Jonathan Smith moving forward. I'm going to pose you with this. I got two more big questions for you. I want to talk about the job that former UCLA coach Jedd Fisch is doing at the University of Arizona. They got the highest rated recruit in program history this past month. He inherited a winless program. They went 1-11 the first year, jumped to 5-7 last year. And Bruin fans, you guys remember we were heartbroken after the loss that we played against Arizona last year, and they showed legitimate fire on that offense. They went, and get this is a real stat that was passed around during Pac-12 Media Day, how he's gotten this offense into shape, Wayne. They went from 123rd in the nation his first year in explosive plays to number 1 in the entire country in explosive plays. Explosive plays are dictated on 20-plus yard gains. So this team had more 20-plus yard plays on offense than anyone in the country. Jaden DeLora coming back, Jacob Cowing coming back, Tetaroa McMillan coming back. A lot of great offensive options. They got Justin Flo in the transfer portal. Defense is melding together. I think this is the dark horse. If you're talking about what Oregon State was last year and how they kind of rose up the ranks, I think that's Arizona this year. Given they've got a lot of the same infrastructure back, I'm banking on the offense being great. I think the defense is going to improve. Wayne, talk to me about University of Arizona, the job Jedd Fisch is doing.
So first of all, the Arizona game last year, by the way, was exactly what the Pac-12 does to you. I don't know if people appreciate this, how much it's like the Oregon losing to Oregon State, UCLA losing to Arizona. Someone's always going to lose to Washington State. It's just, it is what it is. It's like 9 conference games, and I know people get mad when I say stuff like that, but trust me, it matters. And you just are, it's impossible not to have a back-to-back-to-back week where you have 2 really tough games and then you have one of the others. You have to go on the road and play Washington State or I won't even say Oregon State now, or Arizona State, because we don't even know what's going to happen. Arizona State's intriguing to me too this year.
Yeah,
but
man.
I fell in love with Jedd Fisch when he was at UCLA. We had him for a very short period of time, but I could tell. I was like, I like what this guy's doing. Like, you could just see it. Like, I really, really thought he had a good mind, and he was a good coach, and he's an awesome person, right? Just a really, really nice guy. And he's not afraid to. I love it how he stood up at the mic, and he's like, I'm used to this, so I'm going to give a speech first.
Yeah,
instead of sitting
out
in
of
the chair
school,
next to Yogi. Yogi, I loved it. I thought it was great because Jed Smith, he kind of Jedd Fisch marches to the beat of his own drum, and I like that. You kind of, to be successful in this world, sometimes you have to do that. Jaden DeLora is an X factor. Like, if you remember, I swear, man, that guy could not. If he just makes one mistake against us, I kept thinking that whole game, we're gonna win, and then Jaden DeLora just did things that I'm like, that's got to go. Like, on half of his highlight plays were against UCLA last year. So he's a really good player. I liked him at Washington State. I agree that they've added a lot of talent, whether it's running back, receivers. I know they lost somebody to SC, but like they still got really good players. Got to be better on defense, but it looks like they're making an effort to do that. I agree. I think the gap between the top 6 and the next is a little bit. I really do. I think there is a gap, but Arizona's got to be close to that maybe next kind of era where they can beat people. They have enough talent. But DeLora, if you paid attention to all the games he played except for against UCLA, he made mistakes, right?
He did.
Threw interceptions, so he's interesting. He can be really, really good, but he can also cost you. So it'll be interesting to see how Coach Fisch tries to kind of rein him in a little bit.
He has that element, and he reminds me of a very poor man's Brett Favre. The backyard football style, rolling out, evading a defender, will throw up some questionable passes, if you will, 50-50 balls, and sometimes they come down with them, sometimes they're turnovers.
I was thinking Johnny Manziel.
Exactly, that backyard football style. Coaches probably hate it. But us in the seats, we love to watch that.
So please stop, because this is one of my biggest pet peeves, and I know I bring this up all the time. We live in a world where you said it so perfectly, where like everybody watches. Like, remember when Jaden Daniels was at Arizona State?
Oh yeah,
In his freshman year, it was like, dude, shoot it into my veins. Like, this guy is electric. He's all over the place. He's doing this, he's doing that. And then a couple years later, you're going, like, I'm sitting in the corner shaking like I'm going through withdrawals. Like, he's this drug that I can't get enough of. But why isn't it better? Now, he's a Heisman Trophy candidate now because he just went to a school that has better players at probably most positions. And so, but it's still going to be the case at LSU. How can we make him Jalen Hurts? How can we make him efficient and have him use his legs the way he can without the, oh crap, what did he just do? And I think that when you go through the modern era of fans, we have convinced, and when I say we, the people in the media have convinced, we've convinced people that Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are dinosaurs and that type of a player could never survive, even though Tom Brady just won another one a few years ago, and he'd still be. But anyway, those guys could never survive in the modern era of football. And then here comes a Joe Burrow, and I know Joe Burrow's more athletic than those guys are, but he's pretty freaking good, and he's already been to a Super Bowl. And then we have a 4.8 guy in Patrick Mahomes, who people forget he ran a 4.8 at the combine. He's not fast. He's extremely good at what he does, though, right? Some of these other guys that have gigantic arms and they have, whether you're talking about Joe Milton at Tennessee or you're talking about all these electric quarterbacks running around, at the end of the day, it's 3rd and 5. Are you going to make a consistent – are you going to be consistent and make plays? I don't care if you do it with your feet. I don't care if you do it with your arm. But it also drives coaches crazy. You love him when he makes a great play and he continues to drive. But you also hate him when they miss the wide open guy in the flat that they just don't read the defense correctly. So it's a really complicated thing. Jaden DeLore can be magical, but I guarantee you, when you have these types of athletes at quarterback, the coaches are always trying to figure out a way, how can we keep this magical element, but also get you a heck of a lot better at everything else?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I think the fan base, like what you just said, is, and I do too. I can watch certain quarterbacks all day because I'm like, they're amazing. Like, it's so much fun to watch. Even the guy on the other side of town, Caleb Williams. I mean, there were some moments last year where I went, wow, he's really freaking good. But even he has some of those moments as well, and you want to try to have less and less of those moments.
Absolutely, man. And you want your quarterback to get those. It's 3rd and 5. You want him to make the play. But you also, this new element where Patrick Mahomes is a perfect example. If the play breaks down, you have a guy that can extend it, maybe roll out a little bit, fire a throw that 90% of the quarterbacks can't make, and that's what some of these guys can do when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Wayne, you've been so gracious with your time. I've got one more question to kind of pose to you before we get out of here. This is a preseason pick for you. Offensive player of the year within the conference, defensive player of the year in the conference, and coach of the year for Pac-12.
Wow.
Who do you got for me, my man?
Well, I'm going to take Latu as defensive player of the year because I already said this. He's going to lead the conference in sacks. Offense is a little bit trickier. Because for one, it was funny. Your partner in crime had a post about one of the lists, top duos, and it was about Carson Steele and Dante Moore, which by the way was so interesting to me because people have already decided who's doing what, right?
People didn't even come to practices, Wayne, and it was open. Yeah.
But what's so funny about that is while TJ Harden, like, I actually think the best running game when UCLA was healthy with Britton and Zach, you give me that all day. Sprinkle in some Kaz, sprinkle in some Keegan. And this year, and if you went to media days, I know I'm not answering your question right now because I'll get back to that because I don't want to pick one person in particular who won a Heisman. But the idea is who may just win it. But the idea is that Colson Yankoff was mentioned by Chip Kelly at Media Day.
Yes, he was.
I'm telling you, man, I've been so impressed with his athleticism. If you've got a 6'4" freak guy that looks like a tight end that's really, really fast and one of the best athletes out there, if you have a quarterback and Colin Schlee, who also is a freak athlete, like I am like thinking that Chip Kelly is this mad scientist in a laboratory figuring out ways to get all these athletes the ball.
Yeah.
So whether it's Carson or TJ or even Colson, okay, who cares? The lists are like, I love it because I agree. I think TJ has a chance to be really good this year. But we're going to find out. But anyway, Offensive Player of the Year, let's go with Michael Penix. I think that what he did last year, you even said it, it's almost like it was underappreciated. The guy led the freaking nation in passing.
Not just the Pac-12, the nation.
I know. He had such a good year last year. I'm really happy for the guy because of all of his injury issues at Indiana and kind of getting him healthy and getting the coordinator and the talent around him. You talked about the receivers he's going to be throwing to this year.
Oh, my God.
I just got a great coach with a great offensive scheme. So I'll go ahead and go with Penix as the Offensive Player of the Year.
I like it. Coach of the Year, final pick.
Okay. Coach of the Year. So here's what's fun. It's going to be Chip Kelly.
I love it.
And again, I know 2 of my 3 picks. I'm sorry, people. I can't help myself.
No,
I've already talked about it a lot. Chip Kelly is it hasn't been as fast as people wanted. But I said this. I did a commercial for UCLA a few years back, and it was for Zip Recruiter. And they asked me a bunch of questions. I don't even remember what I did, but I started talking about what makes me so happy. I just saw a list that someone posted about like the top college, when you count all the sports, and it had Tennessee number 1, UCLA number 2. And I think Alabama was right there too. When you look at, but UCLA was number 2. And because we're good at everything, it doesn't mean we always win in basketball. It doesn't mean we always win in football when you count all of our sports. So we're good. Like we have a top 20 football team. We have a, top 10 at times basketball team. We have softball. We have all these volleyball. We have all these teams. We have so many good athletes, but I've always said this about UCLA. UCLA athletes, for the most part, the great ones, there's a humility. They're kind of humble. It's like we have these great elite athletes, even going all the way back to the Jackie Robinson of the world. And if you listen to him talk, he's very humble. They're very gracious. They give credit to other people. I've always been so impressed with that at UCLA. Ed O'Bannon, a guy I played with at school, I love the O'Bannon brothers. They're great guys, and look at all they've done for NIL and everything else. But yet Tyus Edney, national champion, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I ran into Dave Roberts at the bowl game last year. He's like one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Like, I'm so proud of what UCLA has been, but I'm also proud of what they are right now. And I think people are sleeping on the Bruins. People think that, again, losing Charbonnet and losing Dorian is huge. Okay, I never want people to think that I'm ever saying anything negative about Dorian at all, because Dorian was great for UCLA. But I still think, and I think you agree with me, Will, I don't think that we're there yet. I think we're getting deeper. I think the defense is going to get better. I love the defensive staff right now. And I just really believe the offense, maybe it slips a little bit. I don't know, but I would be shocked if this wasn't a top 20 offense in the entire nation. I really believe that.
Yeah.
So I really think that Chip Kelly is going to be sitting there at the end of the year with a chance to win a Pac-10 championship, Pac-12, excuse me. See what I did there? Pac-12 championship. But it's going to take players that refuse to lose when we travel to places like Utah and Oregon State and USC. Those 3 road games are going to be crucial this year. And then you got to win the games you're supposed to win, right? And then if you do that, you have a chance at the end in November. And are we going to have a quarterback? Are we going to have players on defense that are going to make an interception or force a fumble? Championship teams do that. If they do, Chip Kelly wins Coach of the Year.
Yeah, and if they can get by Utah in Rice-Eccles
It's
Stadium,
pretty early.
It's for early in the season. It's I believe it's the 4th game of the season for UCLA, first conference game. If they can get by Utah and Rice-Eccles.
That's a big if, by the way. That stadium is crazy.
Stadium is nuts. It's going to be an insane environment. People are going to be coming from all facets, especially after we beat them last year. The Utah fans are going to be remembering everything that happened. But if they can somehow go in there and walk out with a victory, watch out, because the jet engines are going to be starting up and we're going to be taking off and flying, through this year if we can get through that game. My main man, Wayne Cook, thank you for coming on. As always, Bruin Bible, we love you guys listening. Any parting thoughts, my guy, Wayne Cook?
God, I'm getting excited, Will. Football season is right around the corner. For me, it's so funny because, I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Man, I started doing podcasts. I started doing radio. I started teaching all at the same time. And it's my favorite time of the year. I cannot wait. The Chanticleers are coming to the Rose Bowl, and you better not be complaining because it's a night game. And I'm telling you, if you haven't been paying attention, their record over the last several years has been very good. And they've got a very, very good quarterback who we thought was leaving, but he's not now. So we better show up. We don't want to have one of those early season hiccups where it's too close. So you better show up at the Rose Bowl. I think isn't it 7 or 7-3? It's a later game, correct?
Later game. Grayson McCall is the quarterback you're referring to.
Yeah.
It's going to be a battle.
Can't wait.
On the field. It's going to be so much fun. Well, Wayne, thanks again for coming on. Bruin Bible, we are officially out. Stay tuned for more stuff we got coming this week. Bruin Bible listeners, we've got a special sponsor for today's episode. It is AG1. AG1 has been something that I've really enjoyed using in my spare time. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole-source food nutrients in one scoop that you can use into your water. You stir it up. I use it before my workouts, before I start my day, and it has totally given me the energy I need to do the little things in life, like going to work, getting extra, an extra boost, a second wind, if you will, for a workout. Before I play pickleball with my friends, it puts you in a good spirit of mind, and you're doing the healthiest possible thing by putting AG1 in your body. Make sure to check us out and get a special deal with the Bruin Bible. It's www.drinkag1.com/Bruin Bible to get the special deal that we provide. Once again, www.drinkag1.com/Bruin Bible to get that special deal. Now, back to the Bruin Bible.